Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a early impression video on a Jusbox fragrance. Now, I recently reviewed a fragrance from the house of Costume National. It's called Costume National Homme Parfum. It was a 2020 flanker to the original Costume National Homme from 2009. And the people who created the house of Costume National, they also created the house of Jusbox. It was kind of like their niche venture, if you will. So today we're going to talk about the fragrance 14-Hour Dream. So thank you to Daver for sending me this very generous decant. I've been wearing it as my scent of the day today. I wore it to bed once before. And, you know, many of you notice that I do reviews off of these decants. I'm obviously not on the sponsored list or anything like that, but I'm not trying to give the impression I'm the only honest person doing YouTube. There obviously are others. I just don't want to be, you know, bunched in there with the shills. I want you to know that my opinions are all my own, good, bad, or indifferent. Before we go any further, though, I was almost remiss. I have to say congratulations to the Texas Rangers. I grew up when I was a little kid right next to the ballpark, the old ballpark, not the old ballpark, but the old ballpark. Because they're on their third ballpark right now in Arlington, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. I grew up when I was a little kid next to the original ballpark. And I remember walking. We could literally walk to the games. They were so close. I remember Pudge Rodriguez, the Hall of Fame catcher, swinging a bat in the pool of my apartment because it literally was so close to the ballpark back then. So, when my friends told me, it was like, no way, Pudge is here. And you know, when you're a little kid, it's like seeing a star, an icon, right? So I do have some serious connections to the Rangers, and finally they won their very first World Series yesterday. So that was a lot of fun. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about 14-Hour Dream. So 14-Hour Dream came out in 2015. It's considered to be a spicy, sweet scent, and it was perfumed by the great Antoine Lee, quickly becoming one of my favorite perfumers. And so this is a vanilla fragrance in a nutshell, is basically what it is. It is... if you've ever smelled vanilla and incense fragrances, which the very first one that came to mind when I smelled this, very first one that came to mind is Eau Duelle by Diptyque. And so this is basically literally vanilla and incense. Maybe there's some elemi, you know, for some lemony effects, but in a nutshell, this is a very simplistic creation. It's vanilla and incense. And 14-Hour Dream kind of gave me that feel, you know, instantly I got this, okay, it smells like vanilla and it smells like incense, but it's not as simple as Duelle. There's more moving parts to 14-Hour Dream to me. It's a very attractive, very appealing first couple minutes because you get a little bit of saffron. Saffron has a little bit of that chemical-like quality. It also adds this slightly resinous depth to the perfume, and ginger also adds this very vibrant sort of opening. You know, it's a fresh ginger, it's a fresh opening with the ginger, and there's some vanilla blossom in here, okay? And so your nose will instantly pick up on, probably within the first 5 minutes or so, instantly your nose will pick up on this. The only way I can describe it is almost like this grape smelling orris, okay? So there's a brilliant note of orris butter in here. It smells very high class. It smells like the orris butter you would smell in, you know, a Papillon fragrance or something like that. Extremely high class orris being used here. And it gives the fragrance a slight powdery touch, but it also adds this luxury feel. You know, Jusbox being a niche house, they want the luxury feel. But what's interesting is this fragrance, 14-Hour Dream, is named after Pink Floyd's, or it's a tribute to Pink Floyd's psychedelic music. And so the first legendary music festival with this dreamlike and enveloping atmosphere was London in 1967 in the Victorian Alexandra Place. The 14-Hour Technicolor Dream is taking place, which is basically this non-stop music theater of dance and poetry and stuff like that, underground magazines, and you just imagine it back then in the 60s, right? The crowd was ecstatic, and the people who closed the concert, or in this case 14 hours of more than just a concert, was Pink Floyd. And so this is supposed to kind of celebrate their music. So what it says is, according to the website, they actually call this an amber, which is interesting because I get more wood dry down than ambery dry down. And I definitely get this vanilla focus. So the fact they call it an amber is interesting to me, but it says mind-blowing psychedelic lights. The intriguing scent of patchouli fills the air. The warmth of bodies dancing in ecstasy, creating an endless whirl. Pink Floyd notes awaken the senses during a festival that becomes legend. So 78 mils is $195. For those old timers, you'll know what the 78 refers to. And the fragrance says, like a magic elixir, 14-hour dream is composed of warm oriental notes that lead to a psychedelic dimension, giving life to an endless multi-sensory journey. Vision and audio experiences melt together, blurred by the intense scent of patchouli, taking the memories back to journeys to India, and twisted by Pink Floyd's hypnotic notes. The sensuality of vanilla envelops everything and everyone, evoking visions of an ecstatic crowd dancing in harmony. An olfactory tribute from master perfumer Antoine Lee to one of the 70s most legendary music festivals, and to those sound which paved way to new musical dimensions. Okay, so basically, when I think about psychedelic 60s, right? You think about, the colors like blending together, right? The way that this fragrance feels, Pink Floyd's music is very textured to me. Even the artwork of Pink Floyd's albums and stuff like that, it almost feels vibrant and very textured, right? And what's interesting is the vanilla really does jump out. It's strange they call it an amber because I get a lot of that vanilla. They actually call it a vanilla blossom, okay? I get a lot of that vanilla blossom-like smell. But what ends up happening is it really feels like the patchouli, the saffron, the ginger, the orris, and the black pepper, which in the very beginning, you get that grape-like orris. And I say grape because it has this purple-like feel to it, okay? So you get this grape-like orris, and it sort of blends with the vanilla, almost like a psychedelic painting would blend the colors together, right? And the vanilla comes across as expertly blended and crafted, and along with the spices really kind of mix in. It's a black pepper absolute that Antoine uses here, and the patchouli adds this depth. Saffron adds a little bit of depth in the top, patchouli adds even more depth, and it gives it that throwback feel. But the patchouli here, it's dirty, but not too dirty, if you know what I mean. But in all seriousness, it is, the patchouli isn't ultra, deep headshot patchouli or anything like that. What it is it's kind of, it's a patchouli that is slightly clean in one way, but on the other side of the coin, it adds a little bit of depth and a little bit of dirtiness to the composition, okay? Just a little bit. Because you don't want too much patchouli, or I think it would really drown out the vanilla and what it was trying to do, the beauty of the orris and the vanilla in this composition. So, I've done a, this is not a top 10 patchouli video. I've done this is not a top 10 saffron video where we smell the actual ingredient. If you're interested in learning more about those ingredients and notes, you can. You can go check those videos out on my channel. But here, I feel like Antoine Lee uses this saffron note to sort of add this modernity to the fragrance. If you go back to, it doesn't smell like Arabic style perfumery, by the way. But what it smells like is it smells very modern in the sense that vanilla fragrances have been done for 100 years, right? They've been done forever. The most popular were stuff like Shalimar. This is an 80s bottle of Shalimar, which I absolutely love. My favorite vanilla fragrance of all time is Shalimar, which I will do a Hall of Fame proper review of this one of these days. And recently I reviewed Coty's Emeraude, which is a beautiful vanilla as well. And in the same ballpark as Shalimar, but those came out in the 1920s. So you think about sort of the French houses who were creating vanilla back then. They used tonka and stuff like that. And of course the Guerlain has vanilla and florals and tonka, but you're not going to find things like saffron in the old French house vanilla creations, right? So this saffron note adds this slight modernity to it. It adds something that you're not going to find in the older style vanilla creations, and you're not going to find it in a more simplistic vanilla slash, incense fragrance like you would smell with Eau Duelle. Although the very first thing that popped in my head when I smelled 14-Hour Dream is sort of this more thicker, spicier take on Eau Duelle, right? And so there's a little bit of amouage material in here. I talked a little bit about material on one of my women's amouage live streams that I did. Material had like a little bit of a boozy vanilla, but with slightly some of that amouage incense hanging out in the background. Even though there's no incense in here, 14-Hour Dream somehow has something in here that makes it feel like you're smelling incense, even though it's not listed in the note listing, if that makes sense. So the vanilla can come across as slightly boozy, slightly powdery, vanillic, and with the incense, it creates this very alluring, very beguiling-like smell. And so, to me, this is kind of one of the better niche vanillas that I've gotten my nose on. I have a bottle of Vanille by Nishane, and I'll review that one of these days, but it will not be a positive review because I do not like the way Nishane was created. That kind of custardy, lemony smell in the opening kind of puts me off with Ani, but I would definitely trade Ani for 14-Hour Dream. Let's put it that way. And there weren't very many Jusbox fragrances that I smelled that I went, okay, this is a good perfume. Many of them were kind of just like, they were okay. The Kurt Cobain one was nice, but this is probably one of their better creations, if you will. I would put it this way. If you like simplicity, okay, so if you like a simple creation, go with Eau Duelle. Eau Duelle has, there's beauty in simplicity. There really is. And so Eau Duelle has this very simplistic but very beautiful composition, right? I think this is better than people give it credit for. Now, I prefer the Eau de Toilette because it comes across as airier and lighter. The Eau de Parfum is heavier from my understanding. I don't have the Eau de Parfum, but the Eau de Toilette is lighter and airier, and I think that works better with Eau Duelle's scent profile. So if you want something more simplistic, go with Eau Duelle. If you want something that has more moving parts to it, something that has a little bit more, like I said, modernity to it, this 14-Hour Dream that Antoine Lee created, I think it fulfills that. I think it's one of the better Jusbox fragrances that I've smelled. And if you've watched sort of Eugene's take on, he did a video on the differences between Antoine Lee versus, let's say, Thierry Vasser, because they both created these tobacco fragrances, honey tobacco fragrances. I think Guerlain's is recently called Honey Tobacco or something. But I think Delphine Jelk is the perfumer on that one. But of course, Thierry Vasser's there helping and stuff like that. And then also Antoine Lee created Vanille Havane for Les Indemodables. And he talked about the way the two perfumers kind of think differently and act differently, right? And so Thierry Vasser is the corporate guy. He's the guy with LVMH backing him up. Everything he says is very careful to appeal to the widest audience. And then you have Antoine Lee, who's like the rebel. I mean, he's the guy that was probably in the stands, in the crowd when 14-Hour Dream was going on. I could just see him there. And he seems like a little bit of a rebel, of an outlaw. He kind of marches to his own drum, and he doesn't really follow the corporate speak. Sometimes he says stuff, he curses, it offends people, and it feels like, to me, what's interesting about this is 14-Hour Dream has something corporate about it. It has something somewhat mass appealing about it. Not bubblegum sweet. There's nothing like that. It's not like designer. But there's something corporate appealing about 14-Hour Dream to me. And it just feels like Antoine Lee is incapable of creating that type of perfumery because there's always this little twist. There's always something that he puts his own mark, his own stamp on it. He doesn't let these big brands just tell him what to do. He's not a drone. He doesn't just punch in, do what he's told, and punch out with his head down. That's not him. And I feel like maybe the industry tried to sap that out of him. Like they tried to sap his energy and enthusiasm, and he just wouldn't let him. He just went his own path, and it all worked out in the end for him. The dry down of this, I will tell you this, the vanilla in this starts to seem somewhat sparkly, okay? So it almost seems like sparkly glitter vanilla. And that's why I think the opening with more of the incense and saffron smell and the orris butter, which is beautiful. But as it dries down, you get more woods, which you would think is masculine. And it is. The Gaiac wood, the sandalwood, the cedar wood. This is completely unisex to me. No, a guy could easily wear it. A girl could easily wear it. But as it dries down, the vanilla tends to turn into this sort of sparkly, glittery, like vanilla smell. It almost smells like glitter lip gloss for some reason. Vanilla flavored glittered lip gloss, okay? And so 14-Hour Dream, I think would smell amazing on a woman who's confident and can pull this off. Would I buy a bottle of this? No. Would I wear it if I had it though? Yes, absolutely. I'm just at the point, you know, if I wanted like a vanilla that was maybe a little bit more modern than Shalimar, to me, nobody does vanilla like Guerlain. I would just wear Spiritueuse Double Vanille. In my opinion, this is a brilliant, boozy, modern take on a vanilla. I absolutely, I think this is one of the better modern vanillas that you could buy. But for me, it's Shalimar. It will always be Shalimar. There will never be another vanilla that will dethrone Shalimar to me. I absolutely love Shalimar. It's a top 10 fragrance for me of all time. And I think it's the most, to me, I think it's the most influential fragrance of all time. I know everyone's going to say Chanel No. 5, but for me personally, this is the most influential, one of the most influential fragrances for me. Top 10 fragrance. So when it comes to vanilla, it's just a very hard sell for me. Even when it's done right like this, the spices, the patchouli, the blending, it's all masterful. I mean, Antoine Lee knocked it out of the park, and yet it's just kind of one of those things that's tough to do, right? It's tough to do properly. So that's my take. Just a quick review. Unfortunately, I've got a busy day today, but wanted to say congrats to the Rangers. Thanks everyone for watching all of these and commenting and liking and subscribing, all the things that you do to show your appreciation. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you to folks like Daver who sent me stuff like this where I can get my nose on it. Otherwise, I never would be able to. It's a pleasure and an honor to get to do these little reviews for you. If you have experience with 14-Hour Dream, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think about the House of Jusbox. I own 0 from that brand. Not a brand that I resonate with. I have a live stream if you want to know more of my thoughts from the house, but honestly, it's kind of one of those that it's not that I think that they're bad. It's just something, it just doesn't appeal to me. So let me know what you think. Love hearing your thoughts. Love seeing your faces in the comments. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.